Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 344 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Wednesday, August 28th, 2024, otherwise known as the day after. It's the day after the final cuts, which actually is also a very, very busy day because it's waiver claim time. It's also practice squad time, and it's also making some roster adjustments. And the Dolphins did just that on this day. And we're going to discuss all of it, including some of GM Chris Greer's comments during his annual day after the cuts press conference. And we're going to do all that with good buddy, regular guest co-host, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, man. We got into the locker room for the first time today, so we got to talk to players in a comfortable environment. Tua was real cool. I mean, he usually doesn't chat with us at his locker, but he kind of started last year, and he was really good today. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
And we should mention that Tua clarified how we would spell brother in relation to his comment of brother, I get the ball out fast. And he said it's Brotha. So, and I will do a mea culpa in my story on Miami Dolphins on SI. I had Brutha after the podcast. I'm going to go and fix it. Shame on me. I didn't know. I feel shame. I go to the Bucs and I feel shame.
Yeah, I will credit Joe Shad of the Palm Beach Post because he originally went up to Tua, but I was right there. Hal Habib of the Palm Beach Post was there. So, yeah, we got it cleared up. We got it cleared up, man. Yeah, Tua pointed out that in Hawaii, it's a lot of times it's Bruddah, but he pronounces it with the OTH and an A at the end. So so it's all mystery solved, baby. Mystery solved. We get the facts on this show.
Inquiring minds wanted to know. The bottom line is the quote was great. However, we spelled it. So let's move on to what happened today. Again, a whole lot of series of moves. I'm going to begin with a move that the Dolphins have not announced, but Blake Ferguson put on social media, now back to regular programming, which basically tells you, as I suggest, well, I among others, but I may have been the first to suggest that this was a move made to clear up, to keep somebody on the 53 and then be able to put him on IR because the Dolphins had already used their two allotments to do this yesterday on Cam Smith and River Craycraft. That move was not announced, but again, saying back to regular programming kind of suggests he's back on the 53. Sure, there's some paperwork involved before it needs to be done. For all we know, it's going to be announced maybe in the middle of this podcast. Guess we'll start with the biggest move of the day, I guess, would be claiming wide receiver Grant Dubose from the Green Bay Packers, and the very interesting corresponding move to create an opening, one I know you have some thoughts on. That would be releasing offensive lineman Jack Driscoll, who had signed as an unrestricted free agent from the Philadelphia Eagles. Before I speak about Dubose, Perk, the floor is all yours. I know, and in fact, I know you wrote a column on the offensive line for the South Florida Sun Sentinel at sunsentinel.com. Check it out. And Perk's not happy.
Well, here's my thing is that the interior offensive line for the Dolphins, the center and the left guard and the right guard constantly get ripped, and the players constantly get ripped. It shouldn't be the players. It should be general manager Chris Greer and head coach Mike McDaniel. They are the architects of this plan. And I asked Chris Greer today about the emphasis on interior offensive line or lack of, and what is the overarching plan or philosophy there. And what he said made a lot of sense, that they look more for athletes and guys who have position versatility. And so really what that means, and these aren't Greer's words, these are my words now, the road graders, those guys who are good run blockers, those guys who are the good short yardage guys, they're really not a priority for the Dolphins. You know, they want some athletic guys who can run for that outside zone run scheme that they use. And that's wise. That's smart. It just leaves you in a tough position when you need guys who can to maintain blocks for longer than 2.5 seconds, or you need guys to gut it out on those interior runs, 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1, cold weather, 4th down, whatever. They don't have the manpower to get that done. But Chris Greer accurately and wisely points out that the Dolphins have had a pretty good offense the last 2 years. So it kind of depends on what your style is. I would like to see more of a mix with some bulk on the inside and really some attitude, right? We've talked about this back in the days when you had Mike Pouncey, and I shouldn't bring up the name Richie Incognito, but Richie and John Jerry, all three of them were involved in the bully scandal. But you had some attitude. Yet on the other side of the line, when you had guys like Randy Starks and Paul Soliai, you had some fierceness, some meanness, some toughness, some nastiness. The Dolphins don't have that now. Don't blame the players for that. Lester Cotton and Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg are working their butts off. It's not their fault that they're not Pro Bowl caliber players. Blame the people who shop for the groceries. Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel.
Thank you, Bill Parcells.
Yes.
Bill Parcells. Okay, here's the problem. Where my counter to you there, I don't disagree with what you said. My counter is the entire philosophy of the offense, no state secret here, is built on speed. It's built on deception. And it's built on movement. I don't know that you can have, and even with the offensive linemen, it requires offensive linemen who can move, like you mentioned, and mobility over physicality. I don't know that you can combine the two, because if you combine the two, you have 5 All-Pros on the offensive line. And the Dolphins, if they were to go to road graders on the offensive line, how does that work in the running game the way it's schemed up? It doesn't. And again, as mentioned before, it's not like the Dolphins offense has been a failure the past 2 years. It's been ranked, 5th in the NFL in 2022. It was first last year. And then the Dolphins also were 10-3 2 years ago. They were 9-3 last year. So it's not like it hasn't produced good results. The question is, it just hasn't gotten over the hump. And there will come a time where it has to get over the hump, or it's going to be time at some point to be like, okay, we need to start over again with this philosophy. Or maybe the organization will be like, hey, we're contenders every year, and one year the breaks are going to go our way, and we'll keep doing it as long as the results remain overall pretty good.
I think, Poop, is as long as if Aaron Brewer works out at center and Teron gives you, 10 games and he's healthy starting in Thanksgiving on, you're okay. Because to me, again, if you get a good center, left guard, center, left tackle, right tackle, that's about all you can hope for. You're not going to have 5 Pro Bowl players. And to me, center, left tackle, right tackle are your 3 most important offensive line positions. I will say this also about the Dolphins and their offensive line. I think I've said it on here, that with the center and guard position, they rarely take true centers and true guards. I think Lester Cotton and Robert Jones are the only true guards. The other guards are converted offensive tackles. Your centers, Aaron Brewer and Liam Eichenberg, are converted guards. Andrew Meyer is a true center. But
Eichenberg played tackle at Notre Dame, and unless I'm mistaken, Robert Jones played tackle at Middle Tennessee.
A little bit, yes. Eichenberg is a converted tackle. But he's a converted tackle who played guard and was shifted to center as a backup center, and then he had to be the starter last year. I might have misstated that. You're 100% correct. But my bottom line here is, don't take stuff out on the players. This is by design, and the players are busting their butts. They're doing the best they can. If they're out there loafing and faking injuries, that's one thing. These dudes are doing their best. And so if you're upset about the situation, direct your ire at Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer and leave these guys alone. They're doing their best. I get frustrated when I see people ripping Liam Eichenberg, and the dude's doing his best. Again, if he's loafing out there and not okay, rip him. Yeah. He's doing his best. He's been put in this situation by Greer and McDaniel. That this is not his choosing.
Okay. And one last word on this. I don't want to keep pounding on the offensive line every show because that's going to get old. But you can only devote your resources in so many plays. The Dolphins pay a lot of money for a lot of the skill position players. So there's that. Okay, so I mentioned the player the Dolphins claimed on waivers. By the way, none of the players that they waived Tuesday was claimed by another team. Yeah. But they did claim Grant Dubose, wide receiver from Green Bay. It doesn't mean they didn't put in a waiver claim for anybody else. Remember, they had the 21st priority order. which means that there were not the 20 teams ahead of them did not put in a claim for Grant Dubose. I reached out to the publisher of the Green Bay Packers on SI site, who, without solicitation, just had nothing but positive things to say about the dude. Really likes the kid. Explained to me that he had a back injury in the offseason last year as a rookie 7th-round pick, and that put him behind the 8 ball to make the team. Didn't make the roster. Is on and off the practice squad. Didn't play in a game. And then this year looked very good in training camp and would have made the easily belonged on the roster, except Green Bay's wide receiver core is stacked. And this is a guy who's 6'2", 210. There's one clip I saw on social media where he's a gunner, basically fights through a block, gets knocked down, gets up, and makes a tackle. Basically after a 1-yard return on the punt return. It was a great play. And the comment that was made to me, this is a guy who's going to get his hands dirty and will block. And he's 6'2", 210, gives some size to a wide receiver core that did not have it. So I kind of like that move. Releasing Driscoll. Here's the thing, though. All of us who cover the Dolphins were looking at him through the preseason until the Tampa Bay game. We're like, that guy might push for a starting job. And then he was not good against Tampa Bay. I mean, he was not good. And again, maybe obviously we're not the coaches. Dolphins clearly didn't see something that we had seen, or maybe what they saw against Tampa Bay was enough to be, oh, no, not that guy. So,
yeah, I'm mildly shocked by the Jack Driscoll release. I've come around to the Dolphins side of Chris Greer. You guys are more worried about offensive line than us. I don't go quite as far as Teron Armstead saying the offensive line could be a weapon this year, but I appreciate the spirit of that comment. And so I'm really, I'm putting my trust in Greer and McDaniel as far as the offensive line and the selection. So I'm going to trust that Dubose is a good pickup and that Driscoll is expendable. And I think maybe, Poop, see if you can follow me on this. Maybe you release Driscoll thinking that Andrew Meyer can become your backup center, and now you're free to maybe play Liam Eichenberg at right guard. I don't know.
Well, Park. I mean, Chris Greer himself said that the kid has too much potential for us to have let him go, but he still has room to grow. And I don't know if we're going to go with a rookie free agent center. And
he's on the 53.
No, I understand that.
I mean, if I don't know that he's going to get any special teams reps, and so why would you put him on the 53 if he? I mean, I guess he could be your number 3 center still,
because you don't want to expose him. That's why you keep him on the 53. But it's not unheard of for a guy to be on the 53 and not play. Like Patrick Paul, for example, if he winds up being inactive for 17 games, I wouldn't be shocked. To me, he's your number 3 tackle is Kendall Lamb. It's not Patrick Paul, with all due respect and with an acknowledgement. Sorry?
Okay. No, that's fair. I mean, I go back to the job that Kendall Lamb did on Micah Parsons last year in that Dallas game at right tackle, and I can trust him. I can trust that guy. I'm not sure I can trust Patrick Paul against NFL starters, but
also understand this is for fans. This is not you, Perk, because I'm sure you know this, but defenses are extraordinarily vanilla in the preseason.
Yes.
They don't throw any exotic looks. The regular season starts, it's going to be like fake blitzes, twists and stunts up front, where your rookies who may not be completely ready for it are going to be like, deer in the headlights type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, this is why, generally speaking, especially on the offensive line, your rookie offensive lineman, certain other positions, it's not the same the way the guy looked in the preseason as what it's going to look like in the regular season. Okay, let's move on to the other move. This was not announced, but Chris Greer told reporters this, so obviously it's happening. 2 names that he threw out for the practice squad, one of whom was Naquan Jones, who's a big body rookie from Michigan State, released or waived by Arizona on Tuesday. And I like that Chris Greer pointed out that their style of defensive tackles that they prefer now are different. Basically, they want fridges, which is why Benito Jones on the roster, why Brandon Pilley's on the roster. And then the other guy is our third quarterback, Tim Boyle. If you remember the name, that's the guy who started for the New York Jets on Black Friday last year. And right when the Jets had gotten back into the game with a pick six, had the ball around midfield and decided to throw a Hail Mary, which became, for the Jets, a fail Mary because Javon Holland picked it off and ran 99 yards the other way around. Dolphins went up 17-6, game over. Whatever threat there might have been from the Jets, game over. Tim Boyle's numbers, I'm going to be very polite here. His career numbers are but ugly. Sorry, I can't do better. That's as polite as I can get. Career passer rating of 55.1. He started 5 games as an NFL quarterback, lost all 5. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Somebody needs to explain this one to me.
I don't know either, Poop. I haven't done any extensive Tim Boyle research, so I don't think he's ever crossed paths with McDaniel or Frank Smith or Darrell Bevel.
There's a connection.
What is it?
There through Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, I believe.
Okay, so he's been in this system. He's been in the Shanahan tree.
Correct.
Yeah. So, it just, look, from what we saw of Mike White, he's not, he's not any huge loss. As much as I really like Mike White personally, from what we saw in the field in training camp, it's not a huge loss. To me, the huge loss is a guy who has been in your system and knows your offense, because if Tua gets injured early, well, now Tim Boyle is your backup. And, granted, it's not often that you go down to the number 3 quarterback, but we did see it happen 2 years ago with the Dolphins. And we did see Christian McCaffrey playing quarterback in a playoff game last year. So
2 years ago.
2 years ago, right. They went to the Super Bowl last year. It's so I'm gonna trust the Dolphins on this one. I'm against it right now, and I'm scratching my head, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and not give a bad instant reaction, knee-jerk reaction, overreaction grade. I'm just going to give it a C, and we'll see what happens.
I'm not giving a grade. And yeah, they study a lot more film than we do.
Yep.
They're a lot more in tune with who can do what in their system. So yeah, we will defer, give them the benefit of the doubt. It's our job as media analysts who have watched games, a ton of games, and seen the dude play. And again, my initial reaction, I'm sure, as everybody else, was like, oh, okay, because I don't know how many talent evaluators would take Tim Boyle over Mike White, who, by the way, has signed with the Buffalo Bills practice squad, where he will be behind Josh Allen and behind Mitch Trubisky, the second overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft of the Chicago Bears, on the same year that Patrick Mahomes went 10th. If I'm a Chicago Bears fan, I don't think I could ever get over that one. So anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah. And then and another move with the practice squad that wasn't announced, that's been reported, former second-round pick of the Seattle Seahawks, Dwayne Eskridge, who's a really, really fast guy, punt returner, wide receiver, had a punt return for a touchdown in the preseason. I think it was in the preseason against the Cleveland Browns. Can run, so he's another gadget for it. Now, the Dolphins announced 10 of their practice squad moves. I'm going to go through the list here. These are all guys who were on the team during training camp, released or waived on Tuesday. It's safety Jordan Colbert, wide receiver Eric Ezukama, like that one. Defensive tackle Jonathan Harris, offensive lineman Chasen Hines, linebacker Daquan Jackson, cornerback Isaiah Johnson, really like that one as well. Yep. Tackle Baron Matos, who has an exemption because he's Dominican, so the Dolphins have 17 practice squad spots. Running back Anthony McFarland Jr., cornerback Nick Needham, like that one as well. And then tight end Hayden Rucci, and the other cornerback I really like, Jason Maitre, by the way, is going to work out with the New York Giants on Thursday. Another guy we like. In that group, I think Ezukama, we all wanted to see come back. Jonathan Harris showed me some things during
Yep.
training camp. I like that one.
Yep.
Isaiah Johnson, we really like, and Needham and Rucci are the other ones that really stand out for me.
Yeah, I thought, God, who is the other defensive lineman? Hicks, right?
Isaiah Mack.
Isaiah Mack Hicks. I liked him also, but between him and Harris, as long as one of them is still around, both of them had like 4 or 5 years experience, as I recall. And so, yeah, as long as one of them is around, that's good. But yeah, I'm with you. I really like the Needham return. I really like Isaiah Johnson's return. So I think they've done and then as a comma, of course. I think they've done a really good job on the practice squad, bringing back some of the top talent that they let go. Hayden Rucci, I'll be honest, he's a guy that I didn't really notice until that last game. I didn't really notice him that much. I knew he was on the team, but I was looking more at Jody Fortson Jr. We knew that Julian Hill and Jonnu Smith and Durham Smythe were going to be on the team. I didn't notice Rucci much in joint practices or the other games, but he certainly stood out against Tampa Bay. So that's another one that I'll just rely on the coaching staff. But he was a baller against Tampa Bay.
Well, because they involved him in the passing game, but he was all very solid from the start as a blocker, which was kind of his calling card, and which makes sense considering his father was an offensive lineman for the New England Patriots for, I think it was 7 seasons, second-round pick out of Penn State. Todd Rucci. Chris Greer, another of the comments, discussed the Odell Beckham situation. Some very interesting comments, including he said that the Dolphins, when they signed him, were aware that he may or may not be ready for the start of the regular season, that they're the ones who decided to put him on reserve PUP and shut him down for the first 4 games because OBJ wanted to give it a go earlier than that. And the Dolphins are thinking long-term as far as the 2024 season is concerned and having him for the second half of the season not take any risk. And then he was asked the nature of the injury, which, according to a lot of national media reporters, necessitated an off-season procedure of some kind, which, of course, can only lead to one question for me, is then what was the hurry to sign him in May, and why not wait until he was ready to go?
I agree. This looks ridiculous. The desire to have OBJ can't be so strong that you say, well, even if he misses the first 4 games, it'll be a good signing, because that makes no sense. First of all, I would want to have him for the biggest games on the schedule, and Buffalo is definitely one of the biggest games on the schedule. That Thursday night game, week 2, September 12th. Let's face it, Jacksonville is a pretty big game on the schedule. It's your opener against an AFC team. So for tiebreaker purposes or playoff seeding purposes, that's also a big game. I just don't understand why you're going to take such a big risk on Odell Beckham Jr. This is not the OBJ of 5 or 6 years ago. So I don't understand why it's such you're willing to do this for a guy who, let's face it, when he comes back, we know at best he's the number 3 receiver, but it's probably going to take him a little while to even get into the rotation. You're at this point, you're just hoping you get a good half season out of the guy. So I'm really scratching my head with this transaction here, Poop. I just and I'll say this now. On the other side, I'm sure that if guys around the league or in that locker room are noticing how much the team has your back, right? We're not putting his business out in the streets. We're the ones who held him back. He wanted to really go. The Dolphins really do have your back. I don't know if Christian Wilkins and Devon Holland would say that, but the Dolphins really do have your back. So I think that they are earning points in that way around the league with other players, but public perception and with the fans, this is a head scratcher.
Yeah, and this came up through a fan on social media, basically suggesting Dolphins are not putting his business out there. What's wrong with that? there's nothing wrong with that, and it's also not against the rules. Dolphins don't have to divulge anything, but it's also, again, the NFL in 2024, in certain organizations, there was a time, believe it or not, when the Dolphins would send out press releases after a player had surgery.
Oh yeah, successful surgery.
Oh yeah. Shockingly enough, it was always successful, but still,
yep.
It basically, and now it's become insanely secretive. And we hear the term competitive advantage being thrown out there. Like, if it's a shoulder injury or an injury, and we don't know exactly what went on with Beckham, is that really going to matter when he comes back in week 5 against the New England Patriots? We're really thinking that, if they know what body part he had injured, all of a sudden it's going to make a difference. And certain teams are very, very open about divulging injury information. Others are not. And we cover the Dolphins, where Mike McDaniel sometimes will give us some nuggets. But a lot of times, for example, linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. hasn't practiced in a month?
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on with him. Benito Jones hasn't practiced in 3 weeks. We don't know what's going on with him. Jalen Ramsey hasn't practiced in a couple of weeks. Again, we don't know.
Never knew with Javon Holland.
There you go. Javon Holland, the same. And then when next Wednesday comes around, which is the Wednesday of the regular season opener, teams have to divulge player participation for those who are getting treatment or missed reps, and then body part as well. But again, to me, I look at a couple of the teams that are the most open about injury information: Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Last I checked, they've done pretty well for themselves the last couple of years. So, this is my personal frustration, because I like, obviously we want as much information as possible, and but the whole Beckham thing, and as I wrote on the Miami Dolphins on that side, maybe in the final analysis it won't make a bit of difference. We will have forgotten about it if Beckham comes back in the second half of the season and is balling out. But it's a rather bizarre situation.
It is, and in a bigger picture, we're all keeping our eyes on the 30-somethings, right? We know that the Dolphins have a lot of key players. It hasn't started off good if you look at the Shaq Barrett surprise retirement and now OBJ on the PUP list. So, we've got our fingers crossed on others: Jordan Poyer, Calais Campbell, Teron Armstead, Raheem Mostert. But there's a lot of key 30-somethings, and we're keeping our eyes on these guys.
Absolutely. I don't know that there's a team in the league that has such a high percentage of its key players, and we should throw in Tyreek in there because he's 30.
Yeah.
Such a high percentage of its key players being 30 or older. A couple of other interesting things from Chris Greer. He was asked about Javon Holland and his contract situation and how much of a priority it was to get a deal done before the end of the calendar year, so we don't go into the next offseason with another potential Christian Wilkins situation. And basically, all he said is, we don't talk about negotiations, and he's important to the team. So
that's consistent.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at the Christian comments. The one where we'll get an inkling is if we're talking to him at the combine next year, and if he tells us Javon has earned the right to become a free agent, then we'll be like, uh-oh.
That always seems to be the warning sign that this guy might depart. Yeah,
yep,
that is the key phrase. You're exactly right. That is the key phrase.
Yep. I hope now I hope Chris Greer doesn't watch this podcast, because he'll be like, okay, note to self: do not say earn the right to.
Hey, you can almost be sure that Greer's wife or McDaniel's wife or somebody, as they've told us, they follow us all on Twitter. The wives told us that at the owners' meetings, and so they're probably aware somehow of what gets said. I don't know to what degree it's related to their other half, but they're probably aware somehow.
And this is where we should mention, by the way, we love Chris Greer and we love Mike McDaniel. We love everybody.
Of course.
I kid. They're all good guys.
They are. They really are.
Another interesting nugget. He said teams were calling in the offseason, even last year, about trading for Ethan Bonner, which will make our buddy Joe Shad very proud, because he's a big Ethan Bonner dude.
Those bobblehead sales are shooting up right now. Joe Shad has some weird deal where he's like affiliated with some bobblehead company, and so when a Dolphins player does well, right, Joe will send out a tweet hoping that he can peddle some bobbleheads and make some extra cash. Joe Shad is a great guy. He's got some great quirks. I love Joe Shad. This bobblehead thing is so Joe Shad.
We have to double check. I think that might be done though. I think there was some maybe. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Okay.
But that's
We'll
certainly
keep the wrong story out there until he comes on here and knocks it down.
make it even worse, right?
That's right.
What else did he say that might have stood out? I'm trying to think here.
Not sure that there was a whole lot else that he said that would have stood out. I do think that Chris Greer was pretty forthcoming and everything like that. Sometimes he gets into this habit of deferring or saying, I don't know or whatever, but talking about the offensive line. Well, I'll tell you this, Poop. I did think that it was interesting and revealing that when he was asked that first question by Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald about improving interior offensive line and interior defensive line, he did reveal that he and Mike McDaniel kind of get a kick out of the media saying we're more. We kind of always recount that Chris Greer comment of we're more concerned about the offensive line than the Dolphins are. And he said that he and McDaniel get a kick out of that. I thought that was interesting, Poop. He didn't say it in a mean, spiteful way at all. I'm just surprised that he revealed that. And that's good because we do have that relationship with Greer and we do like and respect Greer. We don't always approve of every move that he makes, but we do like and respect him. I thought that was an interesting comment, very revealing. He said it in a way to kind of needle us once again, which is all fair. That's all good. But I thought it was an interesting comment.
No, I agree. And going back and wrapping up the circle here, that I wrote a column about, and the headline of my column was like, how good can the Dolphin offensive line be, and how good does it need to be? Because again, I'm going to wrap it up here with my same take on the offensive line. The offensive scheme is designed to put less pressure on the offensive line. And I don't even know if it needs to be a top 5. It needs to maybe be better in the big games, just like everybody else on the team, but it's not a team that it's relying on this offensive line. Unlike, for example, the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles are two teams where you look at them, they are driven by their offensive line. That's not the case with the Dolphins. The Dolphins are driven by their skill position players. So,
and that was the case with Dallas, right? Back in the day when they had that great offensive line, and and they had Ezekiel Elliott back there, and even back in the Tony Romo days. But what good did it do them?
Excellent point. And on that note, we're going to wrap this up. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Senor Perkins, as always.
Yep, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And Dolphins are back at practice on Thursday before they take the weekend off. That's going to be their last weekend of leisure until, well, no, actually they have the bye in week 6, but they'll be back at it on Labor Day. But we will be back at it tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening and a great day tomorrow and a great rest of your life. Okay.